Hey everybody, here's video number 3 for our class, looking at the Bill of Rights. So go find your notes for me, please, if you could. In your notes, you'll find a section on Bill of Rights right after our Constitution section. On this part here, you're going to have a few questions on the right-hand side to help explain what these things mean, okay? We'll try and explain them in the most easy-to-understand language as humanly possible, all right? And we'll kind of go through all 10 of the First Amendments here and why we got them. So grab those notes, grab something to write with, and let's do our thing, all right? So starting off here with our Bill of Rights, it's our first 10 amendments to the Constitution. Remember, an amendment is an addition to that Constitution. And so these were created as part of a compromise. So looking at our timeline, when my computer catches up to me here, we had the war, we had the end of the war, we ratified the Constitution in 1788, and 3 years later they approved the Bill of Rights. These are part of a deal, a compromise, if you will. Some people are worried that the Constitution gave the government too much power, and that then that government would take advantage of the people. So they asked, hey, if we say yes to it, you're going to promise to put in some guarantees and protections of people's rights. And so think of the Bill of Rights here as a way to guarantee that the government did not get too much power, limit the power of the government, and be a shield, if you will, to protect people from the government. All right? So this is what is really done to limit and make sure government doesn't do too many things. So let's start after Amendment 1, looking at 5 big ideas it has: freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of speech, assembly, and petition. If we break it down to our translation here, guys, first thing is we have about religion. So essentially, we can make our own religion, okay? We call this the free exercise clause, that we can practice any religion we want to as people. Secondly, the government cannot make us practice a certain religion. The British had the Church of England, and so they said you had to be that, or something would happen. So basically, the government cannot make us have a permanent or a official religion either. Let's look at speech. So speech is not just talking, okay? Speech is about speaking your minds, sharing your opinions freely, but there are some limits, okay? You cannot take away other people's rights as you do it, and free speech is a big issue. Certain places and certain situations, free speech can be limited. But it's the idea that in a public forum where people are available, that kind of stuff, you can speak your mind, and the government cannot limit what you're saying based on your message. If they let one side talk, they have to let all sides talk. If they let BLM do a rally on the same side, the KKK can do a rally. So it's not the idea of basically saying that in a public forum, the government cannot limit speech by what the topic is. There's some limits, though. Number one, you can't threaten people. Okay, that's one big one. You can't lie about people. That's the other thing that hurt their reputation. And a few other limits that go on. We'll talk about free speech in school, too, a little bit, and that because schools are schools, speech is limited there. In private places, speech should be limited to what you can do. So we'll get more into that later on, though, okay? But more about speaking your minds, sharing your opinions, and how you do that, okay? Speech can also be what you wear, what color you make your hair, that kind of stuff, okay? We also have the news to publish information. So basically, can the news publish information without being censored by the government? So essentially, the news can publish stuff but not be censored right away. And the government can't be like, you can't publish that unless it's a really big deal. We can also come together and talk in groups about topics, like our classes do, right? Like rallies, like those kind of things. So essentially, we're allowed to group together and talk about stuff. Some countries have outlawed that because they're afraid that when people get together, they're making plans. We can also complain about the government. We're allowed to basically say, hey, I don't like what you're doing. And we can bring petition to them by saying, yo, I don't like this, we don't like this, can you please change it? Now, do they have to say yes? No, but that is our way of expressing that thing. Whew, a lot of things in this one, guys. So we'll go to the next one here. Amendment 2, everyone talks about this one a lot. Keep and bear arms. So basically, it's a question about can the government take away guns from people, right? And it's hard because it was initially designed to allow every state to have a militia to protect itself from attacks. People in a militia use their own guns. The interpretation has changed over time, and now it's more about personal gun ownership. And so it does give citizens the right to own weapons, but every state and the federal government has rules about what kind of guns you can have, what things you got to do to be able to carry them, and things can be a little different that way. All right? Next one. No soldier shall in time be quarantined in people's houses. Basically, the government cannot, I repeat, cannot make soldiers live in your house, okay? You can volunteer it, but you can't make them. That's not been brought up too often. All right, remember 4, big one, search and seizure. So a big question here is your privacy, okay? Essentially, the government cannot start going through your stuff without a warrant, and a warrant needs something called probable cause. Essentially, they need proof and strong evidence decided by a judge on a good reason to search you, search your house, search your car, search your property, search your papers and information, all that kind of stuff, okay? So we'll talk about PC or probable cause. Is that so when cops, the government, want to search your stuff, they need to have a good reason to do it. And you have a right to privacy, okay? Amendment 5, here's a whole bunch of stuff in here. Whew, we'll go through them, all right? One thing is that people cannot be charged with a crime unless they're accused by the court. So essentially, we talk about this idea of grand jury, that kind of stuff, is that you cannot be charged with a crime unless you're charged, officially accused by a court. So it's kind of we say people are presumed innocent until guilty. The idea that they have to make sure there's enough evidence to actually charge someone with a crime, that kind of thing. Okay, we can't just charge people willy-nilly. You got to actually have a reason to charge somebody for a crime. Next is double jeopardy. You cannot charge anybody more than once for a crime. So if you're found not guilty for a crime, they can't just start charging you over and over and over and over and over. That is not allowed, okay? And so you can't do that. Also, the idea that you can remain silent. The phrase here is that nor shall be compelled in a criminal case to be witness against himself. Basically, the government has to prove you're guilty. They cannot force you, trick you, any kind of stuff into confessing your crime. That's where the phrase "I plead the fifth" comes from, saying, I ain't going to talk. Lastly, they can't take your property without giving you compensation for it. So the government can take your stuff if they need it, but must pay you a fair price for it. Going to 6, more legal stuff here, okay? So a couple things. If you are accused of a crime, you have certain rights, okay? One is a fair, public, and quick trial. Means that a trial cannot be hidden behind doors. You can walk in any courtroom you want to and watch a trial. It's totally legal, okay? You have to have a trial that is public. It has to be by a jury of your peers, so people have to serve on a jury. So basically, a jury has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you did a case that way, okay? I'm on 7, that's why I can't see it, okay? You have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that, that person is guilty. It has to be all agreed by 12 people on a jury. The trial must be fair. It must be quick. You can't put somebody in jail for 10 years waiting for a trial. That's not allowed. And you have to be informed of the right charges against you and an attorney to get your case. So, like those Miranda rights that we'll talk about, you see in cop shows, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can will be used against you in a law. You have a right to an attorney. If you can't get one, will be provided for you. So basically, you have a right to a lawyer in a criminal case to help you out. You can also do things like you can get witnesses. You can defend yourself in court and explain your defense. Some countries didn't have that. But we make sure you have that written down. We have 7. 7 is really weird. It's about $20, that kind of stuff. Basically, you can have a civil trial. You can sue somebody for damages, and it can be a trial by jury if it's over $20 in value. So basically, if you feel something's wrong, you can sue over it, whether it be an issue of property, an issue of discrimination, you can sue over those issues. Amendment 8 is about punishment. So the question is, can you have cruel and unusual punishment? And so the word here is excessive. What does excessive mean? Depends who you are. But this is kind of talk about excessive punishment, excessive fines. Essentially, the punishment must fit the crime. The punishment cannot be outrageous compared to the crime committed. So 9 and 10. 9 and 10 are a little weird. 9 and 10 basically say you have other rights. So in a way here, 9 says that you have other rights aren't listed. So you can apply for a job, right? Does that mean you get the job? No. You can apply for your driver's license when you turn 16. Does it mean you get it? No. You have medical privacy. You can get married. Those kind of things are deals that are there. So there are more things there necessarily listed. Lastly is Amendment 10. This one basically says that, hey, anything not in the Constitution goes to the states. This was the states' guarantee that they still have power and rights. We'll talk about this during federalism especially. That's a big deal. So anything not written in the Constitution is a state problem. So things like death penalty, some taxes, laws like speed limits, driving age, helmet laws, public schools, all that kind of stuff is not in the Constitution. Boom, goes to the states. Every state might have different laws on that. We'll talk about more later on. Thank you for your time and your attention. We'll do some stuff with this in class and try to do a better translation of what these things mean and apply them. Thank you for your time and your attention. You're awesome. Peace out.